One. So, over the last year, I've been doing more public speaking engagements on a variety of different topics, and I would like to continue to grow that portfolio of offerings to include more topics relating to animal ethics and humane education solutions. So, this capstone was done for my Intro to Humane Education course, and it was created as an additional resource that I could incorporate into my toolbox. My hope is that today's topic will help a variety of people, including students from all age groups, since it can easily be tailored to the intended age of the audience. In today's presentation, I would also like to talk about the language relating to animals and the way we speak and what impact that it has. I'd also like to discuss if there's better opportunities and better alternatives that we can use to weave into our vocabulary. It started 200,000 years ago during the cognitive revolution when our language emerged. As we learned in Sapiens, language evolved as a means of sharing information about the world. It was a way for our species to survive, a way for societies to grow, and gave a better chance for us to reproduce. We all know how hard it was for Ariel when Ursula the Sea Witch took her voice away in The Little Mermaid. Through the years, language has flourished and grown. The most extensive catalog of the world's languages detailed around 7,000 distinct languages based on a study done in 2009. There are currently approximately 750,000 words in the English language, give or take. It's amazing the amount, but with the ever-growing slang that occurs from generation to generation, I could see this amount growing even more. We use language for a variety of different things, such as to communicate, collaborate, integrate, negotiate, argue, learn, motivate, and even inspire. Language also forms societies and cultures, traditions, religion, and it's a way to tell stories. It's hard to imagine now what life would be like without our sophisticated language. However, language can also be damaging. We all know too well the effects that bullying can have on children. So again, I'd like to talk today about the language used around animals and also dive into the most common animal idioms that are part of our vernacular. In my presentation, I would like to play a little interactive game together, and I'm going to put a few images on the screen and we're going to try to guess what the idiom is. As a reminder, an idiom is a phrase or expression that has a figurative or sometimes literal meaning. Now, granted, at this point in the presentation, this is intended to when I'm speaking to an actual audience. There are a lot of interactive components to this presentation, so please keep that in mind when listening. As a side note, it was really hard to pick the examples I wanted to include as part of this presentation because it really could have gotten a little bit too gruesome. So again, what do we think that this means? This is kill two birds with one stone. Okay, now this one. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, this expression was famously used during a lunch conversation with my dad in reference to my relationship with my boyfriend, now husband. So if that gives you any clues, what do you think it is? This is why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Very embarrassing. Okay, let's do one last one. What do you think this one is? This one is take the bull by the horns. The etymology of phrases such as these is really interesting when you look into the origin. So, for example, our first idiom, kill two birds with one stone, has a couple of different proposed origins. So, one example is that in the Greek mythology tale of Daedalus and Icarus, Daedalus is held captive by King Minos on Crete in a high tower. All he's able to see are high walls around him and large birds overhead awaiting his and his son Icarus's demise. Daedalus devises a plan to throw stones at the birds in the hope of fashioning artificial wings to enable the pair to fly home. He finds that with his stone through a clever throwing motion, that he's able to strike one bird with the ricochet hitting a second bird, thus killing two birds with one stone. The rest is history. If you're interested in learning more about the etymology of these words and phrases, especially around animals, I highly suggest that you check out Colleen Patrick Goudreau's podcast, Animology. It's a wealth of information and knowledge on the history and origins of animal-related words and phrases. So this language is so ingrained in our society that I still catch myself as I am about to say a phrase that doesn't align with my ethics. I thought this would be really helpful to help illustrate phrases that we may not even realize that we're saying, and also offer some alternatives that we can incorporate into our vocabulary. So instead of saying kill two birds with one stone, you could say feed two birds with one scone. Instead of bring home the bacon, bring home the bagels. Instead of put all your eggs in one basket, put all your berries in one bowl, and so forth. Some other phrases that I really like. So instead of saying there's more than one fish in the sea, you could say there's more than one leaf on the tree. Instead of don't put the cart before the horse, you could say don't slice the bread before it's baked. Instead of saying running around like a chicken with its head chopped off, you could say running around like a carrot with its top cut off. Instead of pack like sardines, you could simply say pack like pickles. So at this point, I would ask the group, how do these phrases make us feel when we really look at it? As we learned in our class about thinking in systems, when we expose our mental models, we can see things more critically and with a new perspective. Now, I want to uncover some of those mental models by doing a systems thinking map. And again, at this point, I would offer the group to either as a collaborative effort or in subgroups to start doing a systems map and map out something relating to an animal phrase or idiom, and then we can further discuss. I want to think of questions such as, when we use these phrases, who does it reach? What are the potential impacts? Are they negative or positive? Any themes that you see? And what are the potential leverage points? So in my example, I used a nursery rhyme that my mother used to sing to me when I was little. It's called Fishy, Fishy in a Brook. Has anybody heard of it? It goes, fishy, fishy in a brook, Daddy caught him with a hook, Mommy fried him in a pan, and Baby ate him like a man. So what I did just a brief system map about this nursery rhyme. It could have gone a lot more in depth, but I wanted to be able to show it in one screen. So let's just briefly take a look at the screen. First, looking at the different themes of what this nursery rhyme is telling children. 1, it's normal to eat other animals. 2, there are certain domestic household rules, so father hunts, mother cooks. 3, to be strong, you have to eat meat. 4, to be a man, you have to be strong. 5, humans are the dominant species. And 6, the overall arching idea of speciesism. And you can see from there how those themes can perpetuate into more in-depth effects. Now, what about the impacts? Obviously, there are some positive and negative impacts of this nursery rhyme, but let's look at the positive. 1, nursery rhymes in general, they encourage parent bonding with their children. They're spending more time with their parents and their families and nurturing them. 2, teaching children how to rhyme, which is really important because then that also allows them to start to learn how to read. And 3, although I don't agree with this nursery rhyme, I see it as an opportunity to use these phrases and rhymes and songs as a discussion point to talk to children about how we spoke in the past and educate why we no longer should use them. Some negative impacts, of course. So there's the opportunity to doubt self-identity. Maybe I don't want to be a father that hunts or a wife that cooks. Or maybe potential lower self-esteem. I'm not a man if I'm not strong. I'm not strong if I do not eat meat. Again, you can instill more species themes at a young age and teach children that it's okay to kill animals and that it's just part of our culture. Now, I see a lot of leverage points that we can adapt to. So 1, there's the opportunity to introduce new rhymes, songs, stories that are animal friendly, such as Ruby Roth's collection of stories for children about the idea around veganism and nurturing animals and not hurting them. This will create more publicity and debate around veganism, and it then will start the discussion on a more national and global level. Perhaps this will also, with these different opportunities to introduce new rhymes and get everybody thinking critically about, is this a message we want to continue? We can talk about more parenting groups may start. more things like Raise Vegan Magazine, Vegan Parenting, and the website. Um, more vegan, more it makes veganism more mainstream and it normalizes it. So therefore, more families are comfortable adopting a plant-based lifestyle. Veganism grows, and then ultimately, our hope is animal suffering is decreased. So there's a lot of different things we can touch up on this. And again, this is just a brief look at this nursery rhyme, and it can be far more far-reaching depending on how long we spent on it. And I anticipate when we do this as a group that each map would look completely different, and that makes it really interesting to see what really comes out of these system thinking maps and what are the stories that we're telling ourselves. We have to be careful about specious language, like the rhyme that we just did. Does everyone know what speciesism is? And at this point, I would explain that speciesism is discrimination in favor of one species, usually the human species, over another, especially in the exploitation or mistreatment of animals by humans. Other things that we should be considering are not only just idioms, but the language centered around the use and exploitation of animals. Why do we feel the need to change the name from cow to beef or pig to pork? We say livestock in reference to these farmed animals that we use for food. If you break down the word livestock, it's essentially stock that is alive. It's a way of reducing them as a commodity that you can trade. It strips them of their sentience. Most people don't bat an eye when you say slaughterhouse, but when you step back and think about the word, you start to question why in the world do we need something in the English language that is a house of slaughter? Author Carol Adams explains that when we drop the possessive language when talking about animals, such as instead of saying the lamb's leg or the chicken's wing, we say leg of lamb, chicken wing. It enables us to fall into that cognitive dissonance trap and the identity of animals get lost. We use words to distance ourselves from reality so that we can stay blissfully kind of not aware of what needs to happen in order to eat that burger. So, again, at this point, I'd open up the discussion. Would you agree that we need more animal friendly expressions and to make more animal friendly choices? Of course, there are phrases that may be relatively harmless, like busy like a bee, strong like an ox, or even those truck slogans, ram tough. Perhaps these can be helpful when people realize that oxen and rams are herbivores and that you can be so strong and powerful by just eating plants. In the discussion is where, if whether it's a group of students or adults, I would highlight that it's okay if you're grappling with this information, if it seems inconsistent with what you've believed or known in the past. And what that is called is cognitive dissonance. As Paul Gorski said in his paper on cognitive dissonance, when we begin to recognize the way in which we protect ourselves psychologically from understanding the complexities of the world around us, we open new intellectual windows for ourselves. And I would like this activity to be a start in the key to unlocking that door. I would invite the group to do further research and use their critical thinking skills to learn more about this topic and determine, how do you feel about it? I'm not going to say that you have to feel a certain way. I want people to at least think critically about it. Really look at the words, look at the meaning of the words. Is the phrase helpful or is it harmful? And then I want to leave them with a goal. Let's do the most good and least harm, as Zoe Wild proposes. When we speak from a place of peace and love, we also bring that into the world. This activity is just a glimpse of what we can present in order to bring humane education not only to the classroom but also to the public. We can introduce the important topics of speciesism, systems thinking, cognitive dissonance, and critical thinking in a fun and collaborative way. Once we show that there's an opportunity for great growth in the area of how we speak about animals, then we can begin to make those important systematic changes. So this is just a handout that I created um, about animal idioms and changing the way we speak. So instead of saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, again, we can say never put all your berries in one bowl. Instead of saying hold your horses, you can say hold the phone. Instead of saying, it's no use beating a dead horse, you could say, it's no use filling a flat tire. Instead of saying, don't put the cart before the horse, don't put your shoes on before your socks. There's more than one way to skin a cat. You could say there's more than one way to peel a potato. Instead of saying, this is not my first rodeo, you could say, this is not my first baseball game. And instead of saying, take the bull by the horns, you could say, take the rose by the thorns. I just want to thank you everyone for listening so much. I hope this is a great reference point where you can use when you're speaking about animals, and you may catch yourself saying things that just don't align with what you really feel. And again, I would like to offer this to students of all ages and adults in any way possible to bring humane education more into our society. Thanks so much.